Doctor! Doctor, where are you? I'm inside the TARDIS, orbiting around a supernova. Not sure why. Why am I burning up a sun to say goodbye to you? Doctor. Oh, come on, don't give me those crocodile tears. Come on, let's get over with, Rose. Say goodbye, and then I'll be off in my TARDIS. Back in the shop then, I take it, Rose? I'm not in the shop. I'm going to work in Torchwood with my dad. Well, my parallel dad. Well, that's good, okay. Well, finally moving up in the world, I guess. Am I ever going to see you again? You can't. And quite frankly, Rose, we've been here before. I don't really want to travel with you anymore. I've had 2 years of it already. It's doing my nutting. I thought maybe I'd give it another chance, considering that I changed my face for you, but, well, you just kept me running. Doctor, please, I don't want to leave you. Sorry, love. There's also something else as well. There's another Tyler on the way. You're not. No. It's my mum. My mum and dad. Right, well, it's kind of awkward. Well, you got Mr. Mickey Boy, haven't you? I love you. Sorry, Rose. Didn't quite hear what you said there. I love you. Rose, this is beginning to get a bit tiresome, if I'm going to be honest. I love you, Doctor. No, we're not going there. You do realise that I'm 900 years old. I truly, deeply love you. Well, I suppose it's my last chance to say it. Rose Tyler. Doctor, come back. Oh. I'm gonna go and eat some chips.
Hello Whovians, and welcome to my latest review of Doctor Who, Army of Ghosts and Doomsday, which is the 177th Doctor Who story overall, and it is the finale of Series 2 of the new series of Doctor Who, which is David Tennant's first series as the Doctor. This story is also the final story to star Billie Piper as Rose. So yeah, it'll be an interesting one. I mean, Billie Piper will return to the show, but this is her last regular story. So the basic plot is as follows. Rose and the 10th Doctor return to modern-day London to find a mysterious epidemic of ghosts all over the world. As the Doctor searches Torchwood Tower to find answers, something sinister lurks in the building. Well, Army of Ghosts and Doomsday, this is definitely a very popular Doctor Who story, and it's definitely a very iconic one, given that it is Rose's exit, and given how popular Rose was at the time. This was definitely a special story, and I think Russell T Davies knew that he had to put everything into the script for this one in order for it to feel like a satisfying exit for her, on an emotional level, as well as, you know, just generally for the story. What's my opinion? Well, I really like this story. This story is a fantastic way to end Series 2. I won't say that it is an absolute masterpiece, but it is very good. And it is a very strong exit for this series, which is still a very strong series. Series 2 took a little bit of a dip with the previous two stories, but thankfully this story managed to stick the landing, which I'm very happy about. And I do appreciate the fact that all the previous nods to Torchwood now make a lot of sense, because we actually get to Torchwood Tower in this story, and we get to see most of the story told within this place. And they do refer back to Tooth and Claw with Queen Victoria and the Well. There was a time when, mostly in the classic series, not all the time, but mostly, the stories were often singular and they weren't always interwoven. I'm not saying that Russell had to do an MCU and link every single little thing, but what he did do is he put in these little tidbits which kind of foreshadowed or kind of interwove the series slightly, just to make the episodes feel a little bit more joined together, if that makes sense. So I appreciate that, and I think the setting of Torchwood is wonderful. I really like the start of the story when we see the Doctor and Rose come back to the Powell estate, and the ghosts are all around, and the mystery surrounding the ghosts is really interesting, and obviously the first part of the story, Army of Ghosts, is a great build-up to the second part, in which we eventually discover that the ghosts are Cybermen. And not only that, to up the stakes, we have this other thing called a sphere, which is a void ship, the void being this realm of nothingness in between these parallel worlds. The sphere has the Daleks inside, and it turns out the Cybermen just followed the sphere, which allowed them to cross into this world, you know, the real world. Because if you remember in the previous story, Rise of the Cybermen, the Age of Steel, that was set in a parallel world. It's the same group of Cybermen, well, the ones that still survived, and they've come through into the real world to cause mayhem for the Doctor. So there is no denying that the stakes to this story are incredibly high, especially as you've got the Daleks and the Cybermen are going against each other, and my goodness me, is it a battle to behold. This is definitely one of the most iconic Doctor Who stories for that reason alone, in that two amazing enemies come together. I don't know why this was never done before. I don't know why in the classic series they never thought about doing this, having the Daleks and the Cybermen together. Well, I suppose it's probably due to budget constraints, and that's one thing the new series has over the classic series. It was given more of a budget, and it definitely shows. The action spectacle in this story is amazing. The battle that goes on between the Daleks and the Cybermen is just outstanding. There's actually quite a funny scene as well when one of the Daleks is interrogating the Cybermen, and they're asking each other to identify themselves. I thought that was kind of cute. That was kind of fun. But I want to get this out the way first, because this is sort of the issue I have with the story. The story isn't perfect. I'm not going to say that it's amazing, because it isn't. Rose's exit. Look, I think it's well done. I think it's well done enough, and you definitely feel the emotional weight of it, especially with the whole idea that the Doctor and Rose are in love, and you can definitely see that transpire in this story. And it definitely is very heartbreaking for the Doctor and Rose to be separated at the end. However, my issue with Rose's exit is that it's kind of misleading. I feel like it's kind of over-sentimentalized. By that I mean they're trying to make it too emotional, and it's not as emotional as it's being made out to be. Rose is actually narrating the beginning of the story, telling her how, oh, you know, the first 19 years of my life was nothing, and then I met the Doctor, and so we're kind of, the story is being told in a way through her eyes as well, and she's bigging it up, saying this is the story of how I died. I know what the Doctor said, in that he said officially she is dead back in the real world. She's on the list of the dead because she's one of the people that went missing. But Rose doesn't die. She gets trapped in a parallel universe. So right there, I don't feel as much emotional impact from the story, if you know what I mean. And another reason why I say it's over-sentimentalized is the scene on the beach, which I did parody for you. The scene on the beach, I can see what they were doing, but it comes off as really sappy, to be honest. This is what I mean when I say Rose is kind of too emotional a companion sometimes. I do like her as a character, and obviously it's heartbreaking to see her lose the Doctor, but at the same time, the performance by Billie Piper is a bit overdone. I think that the director should have asked her to tone down some of the lines, especially for the moment when she declares her love, when she says, "I love you." It's a little bit cringy at points, and Billie Piper goes quite far with the crying, I think, and that's always been a consistency with Rose I've always found, is that the crying sometimes does get a bit too much. But, you know, for what it's worth, I still appreciate the scene. It's a nice scene, it's decent. David Tennant acts it very well, but, yeah, It's more from Billie Piper's end. It's interesting because Rose will return and we'll see that she hasn't gotten over the Doctor, and I don't think she ever will, to be honest, even though she has her parents back and Mickey. So she has a family, but yeah, clearly she's not very grateful for that, which is a shame. And Rose as a companion, I think she's been good. Like, over the 2 series, I liked her very much, and she obviously has a very different dynamic from Christopher Eccleston to David Tennant. Certainly when the show returned in 2005, you know, that first series, a lot of that was told through her perspective, and especially the first episode, which was called Rose, how it gradually turned into a love story. I think Rose has her moments. She's pretty good, and she's quite confident when she needs to be. She can be a bit bitchy at times, but generally she's likable to watch. I do think she's a bit overrated as a companion, but I definitely like what they did with her. I think Billie Piper, for the most part, gave her all. Not always, but for the most part. So it's a shame to see her go. I think it was the right time for her to go because the show probably needed fresh blood in terms of a new companion. But still, I'll always appreciate Billie Piper's efforts. David Tennant is fantastic as the Doctor, once again, and he really does do very well in a lot of those emotional scenes as well. Certainly when the Doctor has to look sad, Tennant has the great acting sad face about him, which works for the Doctor. And he's actually very funny as well. There's a lot of great humour, especially in the first episode, Army of Ghosts, which I really like. There's also a nice reference when they're watching TV in Jackie's house, and we get an EastEnders cameo from Barbara Windsor when she's talking to a ghost who she thinks is Dan Watts. Interesting because obviously Doctor Who and EastEnders have crossed over before. Less said about that, the better. Dungeons in Time. Cough. So I like the humour as well. And also, I just like the fact that this story also has a lot of emotional weight to it. Aside from me criticising the sappiness of the ending, I do appreciate how Jackie notices that Rose is changing. There's a lovely scene in the TARDIS where Jackie is almost looking at her daughter like she doesn't know her anymore. It's actually kind of sad to see that. She's like, what happens when I'm gone and I'm dead and buried? One day there's this girl that's going to come back and look for me, and she's not Rose Tyler. It's interesting to see how travelling with the Doctor is now weighing down on Rose and her family. It's kind of putting things into a different perspective. Like I said in earlier reviews, travelling with the Doctor is wonderful, but also it has its dangers as well. And that's a point that I think has been shown before in the classic series and will continue to be shown with future companions. Also, Tracy Ann Oberman as Yvonne Hartman. She's a very good character. Speaking of EastEnders, seems to be a lot of EastEnders connections with this story, just coincidentally. I like Yvonne. She's a good character. Initially, she like sort of runs Torchwood, and then she does trust the Doctor with everything that's going on. And initially, the Doctor is taken as a prisoner, but then Yvonne's demise is actually rather sad. I thought that was a kind of horrific scene when her and Jackie are about to be taken into the room where the Cybermen are upgrading people. And she says, I did my duty for Queen and Country. The only thing I don't understand is when Yvonne reappears as a Cyberman, she's she destroys the Cybermen. Okay, so she's still got some kind of emotional inhibitor inside her. It wasn't really made clear because I thought once they were in the Cybermen's suits, the emotion was removed. Did they not do that with Yvonne? Because she says, I did my duty for Queen and Country when she's in a Cyberman suit, and we see a little tear of oil trickling down her. I know it was done for dramatic effect, but it just didn't make sense to me. I just didn't understand that. Someone could explain that. That would be very helpful. Also, the returning characters. It's nice to see the return of Mickey. It's nice to see the return of Pete, and it's actually quite nice to see the return of Jake as well. Jake Simmons, who appeared in Rise of the Cybermen and The Age of Steel. And certainly the finale when the Doctor and Rose are trying to close the bridge, and then the lever yonks back, and then Rose has to grab it and try and push it forward, and then she ends up losing grip, and she's about to be sucked into the void, and then Pete saves her, which is really great. And it's a quite intense and thrilling climax. Speaking of emotional scenes, I also like the scene between Jackie and Pete as well when they sort of reunite for the first time. It's nice as well. It feels emotionally satisfying because after all this time, Rose has finally got her parents together. That's what she's wanted for quite a long time. Obviously, in her world, Pete is dead, whereas in the parallel world, Jackie is dead. So it makes sense, and I like the way that was kind of tied together. It was a real great scene when, in the end, they gave into their feelings and realized, they are basically the same. They're just from different worlds, and you know, there's kind of like a star-crossed lovers element to that, which I think Russell definitely drew on when he was writing the script. I like the idea that Tennant is wearing the 3D glasses, and the fact that the 3D glasses can see the void stuff. And the concept of the Genesis arc, I think, is interesting as well. The fact that it's a sort of Dalek prison ship, which is bigger on the inside, and how the Daleks have brought it with them, the cult of Skaro, to basically take over the world. And the fact that the cult of Skaro have names is interesting. We have Dalek Sek, Dalek Thay, Dalek Jast, and Dalek Khan, and they're all really interesting characters. And obviously, we will see them again in the next series. But this story definitely is epic on a number of levels, and you know, the final battle is just really, really good. I also like Murray Gold's soundtrack. I think Murray Gold's soundtrack is very good for this, especially in the emotional scenes. It's very nice. There is that cheesy scene when the Doctor and Rose have been separated, and then they got their hands against the walls. The performances are very good, but it is a bit cheesy. I think it's directed really well by Graham Harper, who's a very experienced Doctor Who director, directing in the classics as well as the new series, and Russell T Davies' script is very good. Again, my only issues with the story are really the over-sentimentalization, if that's a word, of Rose's exit. It's just too much, and it's kind of misleading. She's not dead. She's alive. She's just trapped in another world. You know, I think they kind of bigged it up too much. I think they kind of overdid Rose's exit slightly. Oh, one more thing I forgot to mention. There's also a great cameo from Freema Agyeman. Yes, Freema Agyeman, who will go on to be in the next series as Martha. She will appear as Martha Jones in the next series, but she makes a cameo, and actually this character turns out to be Martha's cousin, which we find out in Smith and Jones. But it's interesting to see her get her first sort of cameo role in Doctor Who. This will happen for Karen Gillan as well in The Fires of Pompeii, so it's interesting that they do this sometimes. And the ending as well, we also have the introduction of Donna. Yes, Donna Noble, who will be in the next story, The Runaway Bride, the Christmas special. And it's a nice little tease at the end. She's in her wedding dress, and the Doctor just turns around and goes, "What? What?" I mean, there's not too much to say about her at the moment, but more on her next time. As for Army of Ghosts and Doomsday, this is a superb finale to Series 2. It really is very good. It's just epic. I mean, Daleks and Cybermen together, I mean, that's just amazing. And the emotional stuff does work for the most part. Rose's exit can be a little bit sappy and over-sentimentalized, but other than that, it is really good. And I am going to give this story a 9 out of 10. I just can't bring myself to give it a 10. I'm sorry. I just can't, because, like I said, that beach scene, I think maybe if they'd changed that, rewritten that beach scene, it could have been done differently. And also, funny enough, the beach is called Bad Wolf Bay, Dalek Ulfstranden, as they call it. But yeah, it seems to be that Bad Wolf is the one thing that keeps connecting the Doctor and Rose. But yeah, even in Series 2. So, that is it for Series 2. We are done. The first series of David Tennant as Doctor Who. So yeah, I am going to be taking a little bit of a break, not a major one, just maybe a few days out to review some other things. I've done a lot of Doctor Who reviews recently, so I owe it to my non-Doctor Who subscribers to do something else for a bit. But before I do go, I want to quickly give my mini ranking of the episodes, well, the stories in Series 2. Once again, this is just my own personal opinion. If you disagree, that is fine, as long as you're polite about it. That's fine. We can agree to disagree. No hostility, no nasty comments, please. Thank you. Okay, at the bottom, number 10, quite obviously, Fear Her. Number 9, Love and Monsters. Number 8, New Earth. Number 7, The Idiot's Lantern. Number 6, The Impossible Planet and the Satan Pit. Number 5, The Girl in the Fireplace. Number 4, Army of Ghosts and Doomsday. Number 3, Tooth and Claw. Number 2, School Reunion. And number 1, Rise of the Cybermen and the Age of Steel. So, thank you all very much for watching this review and my reviews of Series 2. I will be back maybe in a few days or a week or so. I'll see how it goes. So stay tuned for whenever I decide to do it. I will be reviewing The Runaway Bride, which is the 2006 Christmas special, and the introduction of Donna Noble. So this should be fun. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Please comment down below. Don't forget to subscribe. And until next time, I'm Mr. TARDIS11. See you soon, and bye for now.